Give it a minute.
ارجع سيدي ارجع صباحي دخيل عليك ممكن تفتح العيادة بعد افتح الطب هنا مساكين ايش عليك؟ شايف انا سليم حاله عامل
Okay, should we come back? Okay, first question. How did you find the skills inventory questionnaire? Good questionnaire? Not a good questionnaire? Not good. Why is it not that good? Okay, so just come back. So somebody said that it's not a good questionnaire because it's subjective, so it's self-reporting. So there's an element that the person needs to have good insight. So one of the big problems with questionnaires is whether they are psychometrically stable. Okay, so that's an important aspect, and I'll come back to that. Any other comments? It seemed okay. It seems okay. So at face value, it seems fine. Any surprises that you found? Are you all top managers?
No, madam.
Anybody supervisory manager? Okay. That's fine. It gives you an idea in terms of where you're best suited in terms of your management style. Supervisory manager. Okay. Some people are not visionary in terms of that. You know, that might not be their skills or where the skill set is. But having said that, everybody has the potential by doing education and training, according to CATS. It's just one or 2 points to make in terms of questionnaires. I've given you some questionnaires. Beware when you're filling in questionnaires or looking at results. Where's the evidence to say that the questionnaire is sound in terms of, is it of good quality? You need to ask that question first of all. Where's the evidence to support that this questionnaire is valid? Is it a valid questionnaire? So the crucial thing when you're looking at any of these theories, any of the tools such as the questionnaires, where's the validity? Do they answer all of the, does the content seem to cover all of the issues? So we're saying it does when you look at it at face value. Construct validity. Does it cover everything that is in the theory? So does it cover technical, human and conceptual? So does it cover all of the issues? Or are certain things missed out? And if they are, why? So that's construct validity. Is it culturally relevant? This questionnaire was likely, wrong one I'm picking up, the questionnaire was likely to be developed in America. So what's the problem with that?
You can't use it in Japan. No.
Why couldn't you use it in Japan?
You will have a different culture, you will have a different style of management, and they have different values and different ethical aspects and moral. So we cannot use questionnaire developed in America to use it in Japan. Maybe you can use it here. Maybe you can use it here. You cannot use it in Japan.
Okay, so there's going to be some cultural differences, whether it's to do with their beliefs, morals, views of management, or whether it might.
But there was nothing about moral management. It's not moral.
No, but it might be something just to consider when you're looking at the questionnaires. Can I ask everybody? Question 9. Did everyone understand question 9? Anyone want to say what that's all about? And it's fine if you don't understand it, because in many ways that's to illustrate the point.
I'm interested in organizational problems.
Okay, so interested.
I like to search in deep in the problem.
Yeah, so it's about interest, being intrigued, being curious. Did everyone get that? Say no if you didn't, because it's fine. I'll accept that some of you may or may not have understood that, because that demonstrates that in terms of language, what is commonly used in language, say in America, might not be commonly understood in Jordan, for example. There's something wrong with people in Jordan, is the fact that they use a different approach to language. So you can't automatically transfer a questionnaire from America, the UK, Japan, and use it in Jordan. You have to make sure that it's culturally valid. Okay, so that's important. You also need to make sure it's ecologically valid, in the sense, can it be used in all situations? Can it be used in healthcare? Can it be used in banking? Can it be used in government offices? So is it ecologically valid? And the final one, which is important, after you've filled it in, if you were to follow this person in their career, does it actually predict anything? Does it actually predict? Is it a good predictor that if you score high on human and conceptual and lower on technical, that you're more likely to be a top manager?
No.
So that's one of the questions. If it doesn't predict, what's the point of it? Ask those questions whenever you fill in a questionnaire. Okay, so there are just some points about questionnaires and evidence-based practice. Now, what did you think about the case study? Shortish. Over here, could you tell me, based on the skills approach, how would you assess Dr. Wood's leadership and his relationship to members of the project team?
I think there is some problem regarding the relationship between him and his team.
Okay.
There's for example, there's a problem in communication.
Okay.
And for example, he said when he said, "I wish I had never taken this project."
Okay.
Yeah, they feel very frustrated from this.
So communication was one of them.
Yeah.
And when he says, "I wish," so you can imagine the situation. He's in this meeting and he says, "I wish I hadn't bothered taking this project." Now, based on what we've actually discussed, what would that demonstrate? What type of intelligence is he lacking in?
Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. He's not controlling his emotions. So that's an illustration of emotional intelligence. Okay, excellent, okay.
Not well organized.
He's not well organised.
Not well organized.
Okay.
All the team and project and the relationship between the head of the team and the others.
Okay, so he's not well organised because he's putting things under budget.
Budgeting.
Yeah, and they're running over time, so that's causing stress. How could you have got round that issue? Say he wasn't great at organising projects. How could you have got round that?
Because first, the budgeting is not enough for the project. This is the first problem.
But how could you have made it so that it was the right budget and it was the right time frame? What way could you have done that?
By planning first about timing, budgeting, and if there is any risk will face them inside when they are studying or making their research.
Okay, that's what needs to be done. What happens if he's not very good at that? What could he have done?
With a planner for the team.
A planner.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you all do Belbin before? You did, okay. So different people bring different things to a team. They have different skills and different things they excel in. So have a look at the team. Are these people who don't have skills?
Also, you have to study their background.
Yes.
What they have of skills and what task he should distribute to.
Yeah. So delegation. Somebody mentioned delegation. It might well be that you have somebody who's actually very good at doing that, and he's got two investigators with PhDs, 4 intervention staff, and 5 general staff members. So if he's not good at it, because everything you said is what needed to be done, he could have actually drawn on the skills of this team. So, using this model, he's the head of the project. Has he got good technical skills?
Yes, you do.
Is he a good researcher?
Yes.
He's world renowned. Okay, so that's much higher. It's more like these ones. Has he got good human skills?
No.
He doesn't have good human skills. That's actually where he falls down dramatically. So he might be somebody with excellent technical skills, or communication and interpersonal skills, and the ability to delegate. Does he have good visionary skills?
Yes.
He does?
No, he doesn't.
But because he has a vision for a national project. He understands the vision of a national project, so he must understand.
So why is he invited on those projects? Is it because of his expertise?
Yes.
So is that more likely to be technical skills? Experts in the area?
But in this situation, he didn't create the vision or the need for this project. It was suggested by upper management and the national level. So I'm not sure if we can clearly conceptualize part here.
Okay, so you think there might not be enough information in there to make that judgment? Okay. You might get a feeling that perhaps he's not great at conceptual, but that might be unfair to him. Okay, so we'll leave that open. Falls down on human skills. So the next question for the group at the top is, will the project be successful?
Not successful.
Will it succeed or not?
He is effective, but not efficient.
Okay. Okay. And how do you differentiate the two?
Was the first.
What would you prefer to be, efficient or effective?
Effective because he achieved their goal, but efficient. He need more budget.
Okay. He's not doing things right, is he? You know, they're all over the place. Yeah, absolutely. So he's not very good at that. So effective is, so efficient is whether he's doing it right or not. He's not going to be effective if he's not efficient. Okay, so the two of them go together. So, is he going to be successful? You have to make the decision. What's your feeling? Your gut feeling? He will be successful. Okay, anyone else?
Good.
You don't think so? He's not bringing the team with him, is he? So his probability of success is lower than it could be. Okay, so he has a committed team. Key word in there, burnout. The team are burning out. And when they become burned out, they're less energised, they lose enthusiasm, they don't participate in the work as much. So the chances, or the probability, drop again in terms of an output. Okay, so he's lessening the probability all the time of success. Does Dr. Woods have the skills necessary to be an effective leader of his research team?
I think he's effective, but he's not efficient because he likes to get things done. Okay.
So is he a good team member, first of all?
Yes,
not the leader.
So who's he focused on?
I think he focused on himself.
On himself?
Yeah.
What do they say?
He doesn't care about others.
Yes. So how does that work in a team if you don't care about anyone else?
He used to work by himself.
Yes.
It's the first time to work with others. So he likes to teach.
All of times he works just one or two.
Okay, so he works best on his own, so he's very much a technical expert in his area. What do they say? There's no I in team.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not about the individual, it's about the team.
I think he is not qualified to work in team. He's qualified to work by himself.
As an expert in his area. Yeah, okay, so his deficit is that he's not a good team worker, he's not a good person to manage members of the team. Okay, would you agree with that? or not.
I told you that I will
Sack
out
him.
him. Really? I will fire him and outsource him again.
Yes. Yeah, so if you're respectful, you need to draw and identify the skills in the team. Okay, so that's a key element. So the third one, the skills model describes 3 important competencies for leaders: problem solving, social skills and judgment, and knowledge. If you were to coach Dr. Woods, because remember, everybody has the capacity and capability through training and skills, according to this theory, to develop. So you're the consultant, you're the coach. He's come to see you and he said, tell me how I could do this better. What type of things would you address with him?
Social and problem solving.
Give an example of social judgment skills where he wasn't very good in terms of his tact.
When he said that I have to do everything by myself, I can never take this project.
Yeah, okay, so there's 2 examples there. I have to do everything myself, and the staff then were concerned that when he went and got extra funding for the booklets, he was going to say, I had to do this myself again. So he's not taking into account how that's going to impact on the team.
But if he had to look for extra time by himself, where's the rest of the team?
Exactly.
This is a question that the team,
he has connections.
the other team members are not cooperating with him.
Yeah, there's two elements.
They tend to isolate him. Sometimes in teams, people tend to isolate particular team members because maybe he has some attitudes, maybe he's just not a good team player, but it's wrong to isolate him.
So it's social judgment and human skills generally. There's 2 elements. One, he was leading the project, so he's accountable for the fact whether it comes in on time and on budget. So the fact that it's gone all over the place, he needs to be held accountable for that. The other part of it is he needs to be able to draw upon the capital or the skills of other team members, because they might well have networks that he can draw upon as well. Okay, so he needs to bear that in mind as well. So the question he needs to ask himself, and a question that as managers or as leaders, the first question when a problem arises that you ask yourself is, what part of this problem do I own? What part of this did I contribute to this problem occurring? So whenever you're faced with a problem, stand back and think, what part of this do I own? Because invariably, it's not just the person, one person you're blaming. Okay, so ask that question. What part do I own? Okay, problem solving skills?
For me, problem solving skills.
Okay, tell us a bit about that. Why is he not very good at that?
Because he had to go to see funds by himself. Okay, seek funds by himself, and they are about budget. Yes, budgeting issue. And also another issue that most of the team members spend 20 to 30%. So they are having extra time, not extra pay.
Okay.
So they will be exhausted at the end of the project.
So that might be his knowledge about project management, maybe. But problem solving skills. Anyone got any different views about problem solving?
Not about this issue, but when my colleague said that his team is not helpful for him because of that he went for collecting money.
Yeah.
But as we read here that they are spending already 30% of their time more than they were asked to. So I think that they are taking 33%.
Okay, so there's potentially another 2 issues here. One of them is that he could have actually, in terms of his problem solving skills, he's not too bad in the sense that he was able to use his networks and he was able to source some money. So he was able to overcome that problem. So he definitely has problem solving skills. The difficulty is, his problem solving skills are all about himself. It's about my networks and it's about how I'm going to solve the problem. The root cause of the problem, as you've identified, is that they were over budget. So earlier on, what he should have been looking at is to say to the team, bring the team in, and he should have carried out a problem solving exercise. this is the problem we've got. How are we going to understand what happened, and how are we going to remedy or overcome this issue? Is he the type of person that would have done that?
No.
Well, it doesn't appear that he would do that. He's more likely to say, you've caused me this headache and I have to solve it. Whereas problem-solving skills are going back and using the support around you. Okay, he's just depending on his own resources and his own skills, whereas he should be everybody. As a basic component of stress management, once something is stressing you, the way to reduce the stress is to gain support from people around you. That's the classic way of reducing stress. If you internalise and carry all of the stress, your stress will increase. Whereas if you draw upon other people around you, you share the information, you draw upon their skills, your stress will reduce. And that's what could have happened in this scenario. Okay, that was it. Well done. Hopefully the case study was worthwhile and just illustrated issues around skills, leadership. Okay, what I'm just going to do is introduce, just for the final 20 minutes or so, and we can have a discussion about this tomorrow. Okay, I'm just going to start introducing something called full range leadership development and positive organisational behaviour. As I was saying earlier, from the 1970s onwards, new types of leadership theories developed. They weren't focused just upon the leader, they were focused on leaders and followers, and the relationship between leaders and followers. That was a dramatic change, because all theories up until that point was just about the leader. So it's now about relationships, leaders and followers. There's just some text I put there that might be of interest about full range leadership, high impact leaders, and something called psychological capital.
You can click and go to this.
No, but if you go on the Pearl Trees, they might give you links to some of the information. Okay, what I'm going to start off with, and I'm just going to introduce for the last 20 minutes, positive organisational behaviour and psychological capital. I'll also cover, probably tomorrow, transformational leadership and full range leadership. Now, the authentic leadership component, I put a voiced over lecture up on the online learning portal. Okay, have a look at that, lasts about 15-20 minutes. Okay, you can look at that in your own time. Okay, positive organisational behaviour is a very new concept in terms of a term. It's only been about since 2002. It was developed by a guy called Fred Lufens in Nebraska University. What Fred Lufens argued, he defined positive organisational behaviour as the study and application of positively orientated human resources. So it's about positivity and psychological strengths. So these are capacities and strengths within the individual. But importantly, they need to be measured, they need to be developmental, so people can be developed, and they need to also have an impact on performance. They were the crucial elements of positive organisational behaviour. Ultimately, what Lufens and Ovolio argue is that positive organisational behaviour is the bettering the human condition in order for people to flourish. So he wants people to develop and grow. Both individuals, groups, organisations, and society generally. So what it's essentially about is, it could be argued that many of the concepts around positive organisational behaviour are not new. But what is new is the coming together under one umbrella. It's about trying to build theories, and it's about evidence-based practice. So this is all about evidence, not just somebody's view in relationship to leadership styles. It also differentiates itself from popular psychology. So popular gurus around management you might see these in bookshops. The question you need to ask is, where's the evidence? So people like Stephen Covey, where's the evidence to support what he's saying? Where is the evidence to say that he's researched this information? How can it be measured? And does he actually show that it impacts on organisations? If he can't demonstrate that, or he's not striving towards that, then you need to reject that information. So what is different about positive organisational behaviour is about research, evidence-based practice that makes a difference. Just to say where it actually came from, in the late 1990s, there was a major change in psychology internationally. Somebody called Martin Seligman became president of the American Psychological Association. And during his term as head of the association, he decided to change the perspective of psychology. Before Martin Seligman, psychology was focused on negative aspects of life. It was concerned about burnout, it was concerned about illness, it was concerned about depression, anxiety, those type of things. That would have defined psychology. What Seligman and colleagues such as Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi argued is that we should be looking at the betterment of the human condition, and we should be focusing on positivity. And they coined the term positive psychology. So from the late 90s onwards, the focus changed towards positive psychology. And an example which can be covered under positive organisational behaviour is burnout. Burnout developed as a concept in the late 1980s and then into the 1990s. What is burnout about? Is it positive or negative?
Negative.
So it's about how we identify people who are experiencing this negative experience. What people such as Wilma Schufeli argued is that let's flip that on its head, and instead of looking at the negative aspect, let's look at engagement. How can we engage people in their work? So let's not look at what burns them out. How can we actually encourage people to engage in work? They introduced the term work engagement, which in many ways replaces the old term job satisfaction. Because they weren't concerned about job satisfaction, because all job satisfaction says is that I'm satisfied coming to work. But it could well be that I'm satisfied coming to work, putting my feet up on the table and drinking tea all day. But what difference does that make to the organisation? What is more important is whether a person is engaged in the activities in work. So in work engagement, what they were interested in was work as well. So they were two crucial elements. Outcomes as well. Outcomes being a crucial component.
So we'll end up with organizational citizenship.
That could be part of it, yeah. That could well be part of positive organisational behaviour. Okay, so that's an
with job engagement, you will end up with organizational citizenship. In order to get people engaged in their job, you have to identify the factors as people that get burnt out.
Yes.
So to eliminate these factors and basically more convenient and positive factors.
Yes, absolutely. So you focus on the positive aspects. So one example is the three components are vigour or energy, dedication, and something called absorption. Okay, VAD, if you remember this. Now, absorption is similar to a concept called flow. And flow, every one of us has experienced flow. When you become so immersed in something, time disappears. And all of a sudden, 3 or 4 hours have passed, and you've just got into the flow of whatever it is you enjoy. What does that sound like? What type of activities? Listening to music, artistic endeavour, something that you're passionate about. So that's what flow is about and what absorption is similar to. Okay, Csikszentmihalyi did work in flow. If you look on the Prezi on the OLP, it'll actually tell you more about flow. Okay, so the key components of positive organisational behaviour is that there's 4 of them. It must be positive. So it's about positive psychology, positive organisational behaviour. It must be based on a theory. So it's about some type of theory that's been created. It needs to be supported by research. It needs to have valid and reliable measures. Okay, so they're underpinned by research. It's state-like. Can you remember what I was saying about state and trait? It has to be at this end of the spectrum. Exactly where you positioned leadership skills should be. And it must have an impact upon performance or organisations. Otherwise, what's the point? It might well be that it creates a nice environment. Does it actually produce better outcomes? Now, the bit they're struggling on, because it's a newish construct, it's the performance element. That takes longer, that type of research. That research is being generated over the last 2 or 3 years. Now, one of the key examples of positive organisational behaviour is something called psychological capital. Okay, we mentioned yesterday the term capital, and it's used in many ways. It's used financial capital. Does everyone know about financial capital? Budgets and money in your bank. Oh. So that's the removal of resources from consumption so they can be invested in the future. That's putting money into the bank. Okay, that's capitalism. Social capital. You come across that, social capital? That's about networks that were mentioned. It's about forming relationships within communities. So it's working together. Humans are social animals. So we work best when we work with other people in groups. It's about making connections. I mentioned yesterday that it's been highlighted that within Western society, particularly in America, and there's a famous book called Bowling Alone by the author Robert Putnam, about 10 years ago, highlighted that there's been a decline in participation in society in America. People no longer join groups, people no longer join political parties, people have become much more individual. Yes, but the evidence is there in terms of America, but what he's arguing is it's probably mimicked throughout the world. Part of it is because of the change from societal-based, a society based upon the community, to one that's just focused on the individual, on me. And that's been prevalent in the last 30 years.
The one-on-one face-to-face communication with this type of communications.
Yes, another example is in terms of social networking.
So we have friends maybe on the Facebook or the Twitter, maybe you will have 200, 300 friends, but in reality you maybe have 2 or 3 friends.
2 or 3 friends, yeah. Now, that's interesting because what Putnam argues in his book is it might well be the case that new systems of social networking might develop through technology. They're being debated at the moment whether you need face-to-face human contact or whether it's okay to use social media. He argued that social networks developed as a consequence of people moving from rural communities into the big cities. And because they moved away from their communities in a rural setting, they had to form new communities. So they set up social groupings, political parties, sports groups, and so on. And they're dissipating and disappearing in American society. One example he gives in terms of gambling is poker and bridge. I don't know if you know those games, I'm not that familiar with them. Bridge is a card game that involves a team of people. It's a social activity. Poker is an individual pursuit. The person plays on their own. In the 1950s, bridge was more popular. In the 1990s and 2000s, poker has replaced it. Even to the extent that people pay poker online. So you don't even need to have any contact with anyone. So there's an example of social capital. It's about networks, relationships, and connection. Human capital, this was mentioned yesterday, is about the skills and knowledge and capacities within your workforce. As I said yesterday, Bill Gates used to argue that his wealth walks out the door every evening. So he sees that really the wealth of his company is the human capital. They're the skills and capacities that are invested in the workforce. They make the company.
Because Microsoft based on intellectual resources and mental resources,
Yes.
rather than technical or force resources.
Yeah, it's not invested in the machines.
No.
You can replace some of the
Or
physical
productivity,
activity,
yes.
but the creativity is still invested in the human capital. Now, one of the things that Fred Lufen's put forward is something called psychological capital. He argued that psychological capital encompasses human and social capital, but it's at a higher level. So this is the ability to cope, particularly in adverse situations, particularly in the current climate. So it's very timely in terms of a depression in countries where there's economic pressure. How do companies survive? What he was saying is that people who work best in organisations demonstrate a number of different components that can be remembered as hope. Oh no, sorry, hero. So the first one is hope, efficacy, resiliency, and optimism. So individuals who have this type of capacity are more likely to survive and also to produce better performance. So hope is about knowing that there is a way forward, that things can be changed, or there's a know-how of how to navigate in terms of the obstacles that are presented in front of you. Efficacy, self-efficacy, these terms have been around for a long time. This work was done in the 1960s by Bandura, but what Lufen's has done is brought them all together. Efficacy is the confidence that you know that you can achieve something. Resilience is rebound back ability, so the person can rebound back when they're faced with adversity. So they're not knocked down and they stay down, they actually bounce back. And the third one is optimism, a positive optimism about the future, that you know things will get better. So imagine if you're in an organisation that's under pressure and you have leaders that demonstrate these capacities, that how that could be infectious to others. It's about what the potential is for the individual and also for the organisation. You can be remembered, as I said, as hero. Okay, and that's psychological capital. Okay, what Lufen's argues, just to reiterate, is that it also encompasses social capital and human capital, but it's at a higher level. Okay, so it's called hero, and it's called psychological capital. So that just highlights that there's a synergy between all of them, but the greatest impact is in terms of hope, efficacy, resiliency, and optimism. Some people have criticised psychological capital by just saying that it's old wine in a new bottle. We know about this, and all they're doing is just regurgitating stuff that's been around for 40 years. But what Lufen's and Avolio argue is that rather than it being old wine in new bottles, it's actually old wine being served in a new restaurant. So it's being served in a different way. That's what their retort was when they were criticised. And you'll see that article is actually on the OLP. It's Lufen's and Avolio. That just demonstrates the relationship between economic, human, social, and psychological capital. That just outlines in more detail what I've covered on the flip chart. So that gives you a bit more information just to explain each one of them. I mentioned that they've been identified in the past. It is a higher construct. They all add up, so they all contribute by adding up, and they contribute to something called psychological capital. It's been supported by research, and there's also a questionnaire attached to it as well that's also been supported. Okay, that's just a description of the questionnaire. It's a 24-item questionnaire that measures each of the different components. And just to finish off, and I'll cover how this links to new types of leadership approaches tomorrow. Psychological capital is not restricted potentially to just these 4 components. Other potential types of psychological capital include creativity all the way down to courage. So they're potentially also in the running to be included as part of psychological capital. There just needs to be more research. And the key areas that have been identified are well-being, authenticity and flow. And that's where authenticity links to psychological capital. Okay, and that's how it links to leadership. Any questions about that? Have you had enough?
Yes.
I can see it in your faces, so. Okay, so what we've done today is we've looked at a number of the different theories. There's resources currently up online, and I'll also put up a resource on situational leadership when I go back to Ireland. Tomorrow what we'll look at is, we'll finish off and look at transformational leadership. We'll look at full range leadership, which is associated with transformational leadership. And then we'll finish off by looking at change management theories. Okay, we'll cover that tomorrow. And I'll leave some time at the end where you can ask questions in relationship to the exam. Okay? Thank you very much, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. That's a long trip. How long did it take today? 3 hours, is it?
3 hours.
Okay. What about yesterday? Did it take 5 hours to get back? Back to Saudi Arabia, you were saying it took 5 hours yesterday.
Yes, because it was to the my car is green. Now it's
Right.
I'm still recording.
You're still recording. It won't be on YouTube, will it?
Okay, send it to us.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks very much. Goodbye.
See ya.